Dear students, I welcome you to my online class. I am thankful to you for joining me. I hope you are studying during this quarantine time period, and I hope you must have read literary theory as well. And today I will discuss some important premises in literary theory. Literary theory, as you know, has brought about a paradigm shift in study of literature, and it has impacted every aspect of human life, including our social and cultural lives. Now, culture has become more important than before. Uh, as you know, that literary theory traditionally is mimetic, humanist, and things like that. Literary theory, important premises. I have taken uh, the arguments that I discuss in this article from John Lee's article that was published in a book. And this is very comprehensive and it covers all the major premises on which modern literary theory is based. Let's get started and study them one by one. The first and most important thing is that traditionally it was assumed that meaning is stable. But Saussure's contribution changed everything. Meaning is assumed in Saussure's seminal contribution to be created by difference, not by presence. The identification of the sign with the object of meaning. Earlier, it was believed that there is a direct relation between signifier and signified, that this relation was natural. But Saussure changed everything when he said that language works on the principle of difference and the relation between signifier and signified is arbitrary, though it is a social fact. This changed the whole perspective on language as well. Words changed their significance and they became more synonymous with sign. Now we talk in terms of sign instead of in terms of words. And a word means in and it differs from other words in the same meaning area, just as phoneme is registered not by its sound but by its different from other sound segments. So just as one sound is different from the other sound, the words they derive their meaning from their difference from other words. The principle of difference works, as we know, that it focuses only on the differential aspects like bat, cat, sat, rat. We focus only on the initial phonemes that make the difference and that give identity and meaning to these different words. There is no meaning in any stable or absolute sense. This is major shift in approach towards meaning. Earlier meaning was considered stable and absolute. Now what we say only chains of difference from other meanings. When we believed that meaning is stable, then we also believed in closure in the text. That text is a closed entity. Text is also stable. That meaning that resides in that text is also stable. But once we introduce the word difference, it removed that perception of closure of the meaning and text. So there is no stability now. Meaning is a product of difference and meaning is deferred for ever, as Derrida says that the word difference is based on two words, to differ and to defer. To differ means meaning is product of difference, and to defer means that meaning is always different, delayed. Words themselves are polysemic. And other thing, that language always means more than it may be taken to mean in any one context. That language is saturated with meaning, and that meaning is in always in excess. Meaning can never be controlled, meaning can never be confined to few things. It is always unlimited and it is always indeterminate as well. It must have this capacity of excess meaning in order for it to be articulate, that is jointed, capable of movement, hence of relationship and development. So what language makes so problematic is this quality. First, that language works on the principle of difference, and then the question of polysemy, that there is always excess of meaning, that there are always a large number of possibilities, and all these increased probability of possibilities creates all the enigma that surrounds language, literature, and all these things. Now, this again is very important. Actually, we are living in the age of language. Uh, mm, as you know, the Greeks, they were more concerned with matter and spirit. Then in philosophy took shift and people started thinking in terms of being and nothingness. But from the start of the 20th century, focus shifted towards language. Now the human beings realize that the most important thing that characterizes them, that constitutes them, that gives them identity, and what makes them what they are is actually language. It is language itself, not some essential humanness or timeless truth that is central to culture, meaning, and identity. So earlier focus was on essence as well, that there is some essence that is intrinsic, that is individual to every individual, and that sense determines whatever, that essence that determines whatever we say or do. But now with the change in approach towards language, or with the discovery that language is probably the most problematic and most crucial aspect of human life, all these concepts of timelessness, they have changed. There is nothing that is permanent, everything is cultural. So culture, meaning, identity, and truth, they are not timeless. As Heidegger remarked, man does not speak language, language speaks us. This is probably the most important sentence in the contemporary perspective. Why? Because we don't speak language. As a matter of fact, we are born in a language. And whatever language that we inherit, we speak that language, and that language shapes us whatever we are. Humans are their signed systems. They are constituted through them, and those systems and their meanings are contingent, patchwork, relational. So human beings actually, they are the product of language, and language works on the principle of difference, and the truth, reality, identity, whatever it creates, it is contingent. Contingent means that it is not permanent, that it is not objective, that it is not universal. And patchwork means that this is not something natural, it is cultural. Then everything is relational. Relational means everything, it derives its meaning from its relation from other things. No foundational truth or reality. When Derrida said that there is no center at center, he actually meant this. Earlier, the approach was logocentric, that there is some logos, that is, there are certain universal truths on which we base all knowledge, all learning, and all our epistemological system, all our beliefs, everything. And in the contemporary perspective, we believe there is no foundational truth or reality, no absolute, no eternals, no solid ground of truth beneath the shifting sands of history. Why there is no foundational truth or reality or eternals? Because earlier everything was based on logos that was stable. Now everything is based on difference that is not stable, that keeps changing and moving. There are only local and contingent truths. Now, universality has given place to, or given room to local, that there is nothing universal, everything is contingent, generated by human groups through their cultural systems. So this is again is important, that cultural systems actually produce everything, and culture systems themselves are based on science that are intrinsic to a particular culture. And the cultural system, they actually reflect the power in which that system exists. And as Foucault has also said, that power is the most important aspect of human life and culture, and it reflects itself through different signifying systems. Both values and personal identity are cultural constructs, not stable entities. Earlier, it was believed that human identity is personal, individual, that every individual is unique, and every culture is unique in the sense that it contains universal values and all that. But there is no room for any of these things. Now, as Kaja Silverman points out, even the unconscious is a cultural construct, as the unconscious is constructed through repression. The forces of repression are cultural, and what is taboo is culturally formulated. This actually is based on Freud's arguments that are based on repression and all these things. And in post-structuralist era, we generally go for Lacan, who says that language, as we find parole and lang in language, there are conscious and unconscious in our human mind, and our unconscious is like lang. As lang derives itself from parole or get words and vocabulary and its structures from parole, unconscious also gets everything from the conscious. So there can be nothing in the unconscious that does not come in the that does not come from the conscious. So in this way, unconscious is not that unconscious, that is actually based on human consciousness, and that is actually a greater reality, a more permanent and more constant factor in human beings than consciousness. No stable entity, identity, essence, as I said earlier, that everything has changed. Now we live in a world where ideology is more important, and all signs and symbols, they are ideological. The individual is thus decentered. Decentered means once individual had stable identity. Now, what is individual? In humanist perspective, individual is the one who is capable of independent action, okay, independent thought, who can take the initiative or who has the agency. And all that was possible when individuals, when people, they had logocentrism at the back of their thinking. Now, as I told you earlier, the logocentrism has been replaced by difference, and that has actually decentered everything. Now, as our consciousness is based on language, language is based on difference and contradictions, our consciousness is also bound to be differential and contradictory. And there is no stable self, only subject positions. Subject position means you may call the position that we occupy in our system, or the we are actually objects, we are actually victims of the forces that act on us. We actually respond to the softwares that are installed in our minds in the form of different discourses. Human mind itself is actually a discourse now. Whatever we uh, add to it, okay, we respond to that. Human mind, if it works like a computer, then our mind works according to a software, and whatever we install in that software, the computer responds to that. In this way, our body responds only to the discourses that we install in our minds, and these discourses are ideological. In this way, we can say that human mind is cultural and ideological, and it just responds to different signifying system. Meaning is construct and ideological. The same logic is going on. The meaning that appears as normal in our social life masks through various means such as omission, displacement, difference, misspeaking, and bad faith. The meaning that is the world of meaning we think we occupy is not the world we do in fact occupy. So this again goes back to our general debate on language. Meaning is a construct and meaning is ideological. Now, next important thing is text is a process. A text is, as Roland Barthes points out, etymologically a tissue, a woven thing, from the Latin texture, to weave. It is a tissue woven of former texts. This is called intertextuality. There is no text that is without any pretext. All the texts they respond to earlier texts. This is also called intertextuality. In this way, there is no original text. There is no genuine, absolute, universal text. All the texts they are based on different uses of language, and all these texts they actually echo what of which it inherently retains, woven of historical references and practices, and woven of the play as meaning abundance and as articulability of language. So according to Roland Barthes, text is just an act of weaving in which we weave words. As we just discussed, that words and language they are indeterminate, so the text also becomes indeterminate. Text becomes then a continuous process that never arrives at closure or at final meaning. So text is a process, and a text is not and cannot be only itself, nor it can be reified said to be a thing. A text is a process. Literary theory advocates pushing against the depth, complexity, and indeterminacy of this tissue until not only the full implications of the multiplicities, but the contradictions inevitably inherent them become apparent. So when we study text, we should focus on these two things. First is indeterminacy. That texts they don't have a determined meaning or final meaning or stable meaning. Rather, meaning is indeterminate. That meaning is not finally determined. That there are multiplicities, that there are contradictions, that through critical reading, we should go for as much possibilities as language can have. There is nothing outside of the text. This is a quotation by Derrida, and this is one of the quotations that actually paved the way for deconstruction. When we say there is nothing outside the text, then culture and individuals are constructed through networks of affiliated language, symbol, and discourse usages. All of life is textual, a tissue of signifying relationships. So this is there are only texts, and human beings they respond to the text that they inherit, and they cannot go beyond them. No text can be isolated from the constant circulation of meaning in the economy. of the culture. Every text connects to and is constituted through and of other texts. So, as I have discussed, uh, in contemporary literary theory, all the basic assumptions on which literary theory or the traditional criticism was based, they have been challenged and they have been replaced. And now we are living in a world where nothing is final, everything is up in process, everything is in flux. Meanings, they are not stable. Text, they are not stable. Individual has been replaced by subject. Individual means the one who is the giver, the one who takes initiative, and subject means one who is a site and one who is at the receiving end. And knowledge itself is now considered cultural, and merely a cultural text or a signifying system are one of the paradigms, cultural paradigms. As Robert Cohen says, that even scientific knowledge is also a cultural paradigm, and it is not more than that in any way. So that's all for today. And in next session, I will discuss some other aspects of literary theory. Thank you very much.